Other Royal Air Force aircraft, we were told today. It is a heavy use aircraft. This was the head of the RAF talking to us with some notable operational experiences recently. Let's go to Greg Milam, including in Afghanistan and Ukraine, Greg.
Yes, an aircraft used in that evacuation of Kabul, an aircraft used to deliver humanitarian and lethal aid for use in Ukraine. So again, very much as we've heard over the last few days, the reflection of the military's affection for the late Queen and their role in these final moments, particularly on Scottish soil. The airport here in Edinburgh, in the last 10 minutes or so, all aircraft in and out were halted. The only sound you can hear now actually is the generator powering that giant C-17 as it awaits the arrival of the hearse, and the honour guard ready to receive that hearse, and the band of the Royal Regiment of Scotland also ready to play their part in this well-rehearsed event, and one in this beautiful late afternoon sunshine that this airport and this city is ready for. An RAF bearer party will carry the coffin, as I say, that guard of honour, and a royal salute, and the band of the Royal Regiment of Scotland here on the apron as that and as the plane leaves, they will give one final royal salute before a verse of the national anthem. But again, we're seeing on the way from the centre of Edinburgh here to the hills on the outskirts of the city, people continuing to line the streets. Even just outside the gates here, you can imagine the security operation in and around this airport, but just outside the gates, people on every available corner of the street to be here and be part of this goodbye and these last few moments on Scottish soil for the Queen.
The sun is beating down on these wings that have been, as Greg was saying, in such areas of operational activity. And occasionally in the sad times when British service people were being injured or even killed, it was these aircraft that brought them home. And at the same time, their role principally to provide all the uplift that the armed forces need whilst on operations. But what a lift today. And interesting that the area around here is so quiet now, as the principal service chiefs, Brigadier Andy Muddiman of the Royal Marines representing the Navy, General Bill Wright, the General Officer Scotland, and then immediately on our left, Air Vice Marshal, who is the Air Officer Scotland, while we see the procession coming around towards this point. Air Vice Marshal Ross Patterson, who is, as Air Officer Scotland, the person that the Chief of the Air Staff, who we spoke to earlier today, will have been in close contact with to make sure that this element of the Armed Forces contribution by the Royal Air Force to support the King in bringing the late Queen home was done according to plan. As Princess Elizabeth, and with her sister Princess Margaret Rose, the late Queen spent a great deal of her time at Glamis Castle, and often used to have gatherings of her cousins and friends. And it was that period before she had even the slightest inkling that one day she would be Queen. After all, she had an uncle who was going to be king. But his abdication in 1936, soon after the death of her beloved grandfather, King George V, changed everything. Her father, the Duke of York, and to come out of the anguish that he had in public life, he found it difficult to speak in public. And the young Princess Elizabeth watched her mother with Scottish grit and determination support and help King George VI in the early months and years of that reign leading up to the war. And the war completely changed not only the Queen's life, but that of everybody, any of us know, who were alive during that period of trial. The route to where the Globemaster C-17 is waiting is really following around to where the old Royal Air Force Turnhouse was. They've avoided the airport for perhaps obvious reasons, but very close now. Start to see some of the old emplacements from the defence of that airfield.
Well, we see at their reception party the Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack, the presiding officer of the Scottish Parliament, Alison Johnston, and Councillor Robert Aldridge, Lord Provost and Lord Lieutenant for the City of Edinburgh. I spoke to the latter two, both of them yesterday. Alison Johnston visibly upset at that service of Thanksgiving at St Giles Cathedral, and Councillor Aldridge, the Lord Lieutenant, in tears with me. And actually it reminds us all that this has come as a shock. We saw Her Majesty the Queen in those wonderful photographs from Balmoral only on Tuesday. She commented to the photographer while they were waiting for Liz Truss to come into the room, and she looked out the window that the skies were getting darker. It looked like the weather was coming in. And the photographer from the Press Association saying how alert and what fun she was. And so this shock, Alistair, which has taken perhaps everybody by surprise, and it comes upon them moments of emotion and moments of grief. And it often is when you see somebody's coffin like this, that sense of loss really is most acute.
The passage of life is experienced in every family. The excitement of birth, the delight at marriage, and the tragedy and sadness of saying goodbye. And the royal family may find that it is known by so many people, as I noticed a group of people taking their hats off as the late Queen passed by just then. And people identify with royal marriage, royal birth, as an extension of their own lives in a way. And I think that losing the Queen so suddenly, after her wide grin, chatting to that photographer, waiting for the arrival of the new Prime Minister Liz Truss for the Queen to invite her to form the government. That was really delightful. And so surprising that so quickly the angels came and took her from her haven of Balmoral on her journey to heaven. She's now inside the old air base,